Hello once again, race fans, and welcome back to another episode of the Dropping the Hammer Racing Hour here on The Grueling Truth, where legends speak. I'm Alex Gray, as always, along here with Michael Klein, and we have a special guest joining us here today. It is former NASCAR pit reporter and analyst, and did it for a long time on Truck Series on the Speed Channel. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Ray Dunlap. Thank you so much for joining us, Ray.
Hey, guys. Great to be here.
Absolutely,
man.
Yeah. Absolutely great to have you, and we'll get into some of the news here just shortly. But, Ray, if you want to tell some of the audience a little bit about yourself and what got you into what you did for so many years.
Yeah, well, my father was a big fan of any kind of motorsports, and when I was a young kid, we went to the races on Saturday nights, and I just loved it, everything about it. And when I went to college, I decided I wanted to study radio and television. My original thought was that I would just be a radio DJ of some kind, because I love music also. But as that sort of morphed more in towards the television realm, I was able to work my way into the ARCA series many, many years ago, and I did some video camera work for them, and that opened up a door to become public relations director at ARCA, and that was a really fun job. Back in those days, we had a lot more short tracks and a very packed schedule, so we traveled all the time, and it was a lot of fun. And by being in that role, I was around the television people quite a bit, trying to help them make our ARCA broadcasts better, and really that sort of was the first thing that opened up the door for me.
Oh, that's pretty awesome. Yeah, I've always enjoyed watching the ARCA circuit. You know, I've been to a few races at Kentucky Speedway in the past, and me and Michael and his brother John actually went up to IRP earlier this year as well.
Yeah, I love that. You know, IRP is a great racetrack for ARCA short tracks. It was such an interesting mix because ARCA had the most diverse schedule by far. They ran 2-mile dirt races back when I was there, and of course, you'd go on a weekend run where we'd do Friday, Saturday, and Sunday night at 3 different short tracks in Central Ohio or Michigan or Indiana, and then you'd take off the next weekend and go you'd go to Talladega and run the super speedway there, and a week later you'd be on a road course out in Iowa or Kansas somewhere. So it was just it was really fun to see. It's an incredible amount of work that those teams have to put in. Obviously they're way underfunded compared to the upper levels of NASCAR, and so it's really a very family environment, and it was a great learning place for me especially, and I have lifelong friends from the time that I was there, even though it was 30 years ago.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Michael, anything you want to add on to that?
Sure, yeah. I mean, ARCA is kind of how I got started in racing for me. I mean, I started working with Thomas Prater a few years ago. That was kind of my first foray into big level racing, and just the amount of camaraderie you have in the ARCA garage is incredible, and just the type of schedule they have. I mean, it is probably the most diverse in motorsports. But yeah, I definitely see how, ARCA can sort of create this sort of attachment to it, like you described there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the whole thing. Like you said, it's about that family environment and the friendships that you make. And when you look at the Cup field today, just about all of the guys that are successful there have come through ARCA one way or the other. Obviously Chase Elliott. When those young drivers, they've got to run a super speedway race somewhere for the first time, and chances are it's going to be in ARCA. I just the people there are great. They do a lot with a little as far as the administration there and the technical people. Many of them are retired NASCAR people, so it just really is a wonderful group of people. And like I say, that gave me an opportunity to get my foot in the door. And from that point, then I moved on to Speed Channel. I moved to ESPN first. I should preface that. I was at ESPN for about 6 years, and I had the privilege to work in the Cup Series with, Bob Jenkins, Benny Parsons, Ned Jarrett, Dr. Jerry Punch, Bill Weber, John Kernan. It was really one of the very best broadcast crews, in my opinion, in the history of our sport. And to be able to lay my name on that list really is quite a privilege, because all those guys did a lot to help me along and help teach me the ropes, especially Jerry Punch. So what an incredible group there, and to have been a part of that is really an honor. And then after ESPN, when the TV contract changed in 2001, then I Fox Sports and worked at Speed Channel covering the Truck Series primarily, but did some Xfinity Series racing and Cup pre-race, and we just had such a great lineup of shows back then. People who were big fans of motorsports 15 years ago had such a more diverse opportunity to watch shows and get their information than there is today even. And it was really, really fun, especially working on Wind Tunnel with Dave Despain, and those kind of shows we had at Speed Channel were really something special.
Oh yeah. I mean, I think everybody here misses Speed Channel.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. I mean, I remember when I was a kid, this is like 2005, I became a fan in 2004, and we got, I think it was DirecTV, and I was like, my dad told me, like, hey, we have the Speed Channel. I was like, yes, I can watch the truck races, I can watch Cup qualifying, I can watch all this other racing stuff. So, if I wasn't watching like Cartoon Network or something like that, I was watching Speed Channel.
Same here.
I absolutely loved a lot of the stuff that was on that channel, and obviously I was sad to see it go, but I know a lot of the racing has continued. A lot of racing activities have continued on Fox Sports and NBCSN as well.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, Speed Channel, I watched that religiously growing up.
Mm-hmm.
So, when I heard it was going to be turned into FS1, I mean, that was seriously like, sword through the heart right there.
Yeah. It was like, that was like the main channel for motorsports. And that was when, this was before streaming services and everything. This was like, there was a channel for everything at that point with cable coming in and everything else. So, like, there was just so many channels. So there was a channel for golf. There's, the NFL has its own network. The NBA has their own network. The MLB has their own network. And motorsports had their own network with the Speed Channel and all the races that I remember, especially a lot of the truck races I used to watch when I was a kid as well.
Yeah, there was so much other ancillary programming too, and you can find auto auctions on other channels now, and you can find some car build channels or car build shows on other channels now, but you have to spend the time to go out and search for it, and we had that all in one beautiful little smorgasbord there, and now you have to go a la carte and shop around and look for it. But they made that decision that they wanted to go all sports network with the channel, and because it had great distribution, we already had 80-some million homes on the Speed Channel. It was a decision that corporate made, and my guess is if I could go sit down and go to lunch with all of those guys that made that decision, 7 or 8 years ago, they would probably look back and say, we probably shouldn't have done that, but nevertheless, that they moved on, and FS1 has a lot of good programming, a lot of good sports on it. So, It's something that's still on my short list to go to, but certainly nothing like it was back in the day when we had 24 hours a day of Motorhead for Speed TV.
No,
Yeah,
absolutely.
I mean, my favorite thing to go on there was seeing all the, good short track races they would have on there. I mean, back then they would play replays of the World of Outlaws or ARCA, K&N Pro Series. I mean, anytime that was on, I would just be glued to the TV. I mean, I remember when they would air the K&N races every day, like as soon as I got home from school, and I would just be so looking forward to go there and watching those.
Yeah, and that was one of the fun things about my assignments over the years, too, is that, I got to do a lot of those entry-level races, K&N Pro Series. And, even a few years before you guys were probably around, we had the NASCAR touring divisions with the Southwest Tour and all those. And when I first started, sometimes I'd leave on a Wednesday and we'd have a tour race somewhere a Thursday night. I'd go do a sprint car race at IRP on Friday, and then we'd have an ARCA race somewhere Saturday, and then I'd be at the Cup race in Pocono on Sunday. And we racked up a lot of frequent flyer miles, which was really was a bit of a challenge sometimes getting from place A to B, but it was a lot of fun too. And when I look back on my memories, there was 2 or 3 years in a row where I did over 200 events a season, and you sit down and you shake your head and you're like, I don't know how that happened, but 200 different days, not just events, because sometimes you'd have a practice and qualifying and a truck race all in the same day,
Yeah. Wow.
But that's fun whenever you can do 200 days and be at 45 or 50 different tracks.
Yeah, I was about to say, honestly, that sounds like a ton of fun, honestly.
Yeah,
well,
absolutely.
The diversity of it's what made it really interesting, because we'd run an ARCA race at Lake Erie Speedway, and it'd be on a half mile, and the next day, or like I said, you'd be at Pocono or something like that. So you had to do a good bit of research and be ready for a busy week like that. But I loved the challenge.
Yeah, I would love to be able to do that.
Same.
Last year I only got to compete in one race, and, other than that, it was really just me going to races, helping people. So I'd love to be able to go out and do 200 races a year, especially if I was running them all.
Yeah, same.
Sure.
I've had media credential opportunities at some races in the past couple of years before, obviously, COVID happened. And, I had a blast, and I was like, I want to do this all the time. This is a ton of fun, just getting this kind of experience, getting to meet different people, and, and just taking the diversity of the different tracks and what each track brings. Because every track is different no matter where you go. The area around it and the atmosphere is it's that part of, like, something my dad encouraged me before, is like, see the world,
Absolutely.
So, like, I've actually been curious about asking this. What advice would you have for someone like myself to get into, what you did, or into the auto racing media industry?
Well, the very first thing I did after college, right after I graduated, I started a public access show in Columbus, Ohio, and we had a channel there that the cable companies all put money into to allow community people to come in and create their own kind of things. It was like a Wayne's World. There were people who did shows about religion. Other people did book reviews, and I made a little show where I did auto racing, and I built my own set, and I made a lectern that I stood behind at the studio, and then we would play highlights from races that I'd go to Columbus Motor Speedway and to Mid Ohio and tracks that were handy. And I went to all those people and said, hey, look, I'd like to shoot video here and put it on the TV show. And they were like, well, sure, we'd love to get the extra coverage. So, and part of that was just the timing. It worked out that there was that opportunity for me. Not everybody has that chance. But primarily it's about trying to find a way to be at the racetrack. You've got to be there to learn. You got to learn on the media side. You've got to learn about the physical race cars. You've got to learn about the people. You've got to learn about the processes of when you want to talk to somebody, when not to. And there was a lot of value in the fact that, when having worked at ARCA for those number of years doing public relations, it really gave me a lot of information about understanding the media side, more than just being able to pick up a microphone and ask somebody a question, but about the process and how it all works. So a lot of it was just being there. You've got to meet the people. You've got to let them know what your goals are, and you've got to talk to them about how to reach those. But part of my, sometimes it's right place, right time. Sometimes it's excellent preparation, and I think there's a happy mixture to all of that. But being at the track is the most important thing, because that's where you get the knowledge.
I definitely agree with that. Thank you. Obviously I know this year was rather difficult, but Michael and I actually did get to go to the All-Star race, thankfully, in Bristol, and that was a fun experience. And obviously he and I get to do this podcast and talk about NASCAR and auto racing and all that fun stuff, and it's something I love to do. Both of us have grown up as kids loving NASCAR. Well, I'm sure we've been made fun of for it at times, but in the end, as adults, we just kind of want to give back.
Yeah, and like you said, the COVID situation has made it an extremely difficult year. I am overwhelmed at how successful NASCAR was able to manage the entire process. They just did a masterful job of going down to the minimum number of people. And I'll tell you, this process of going through this is going to change a lot of policies and a lot of procedures in the future. I don't think you're going to ever see a 4-day show again at a racetrack. They've come to realize the total amount of expense of all those other things, and if they were able to get through it this year, I think you'll see a lot less practices even in the future when COVID is no longer an issue. But that, it's things that, in baseball this year we had a designated hitter in the National League. I think it was a great change, and I love it, and I sure hope they keep it in the future. But that's one of those kind of things that probably wouldn't have come along or wouldn't have had an opportunity to give it a try. And so there are a few positives here and there, but obviously the limited number of people being at the racetrack has affected a great number of people, and a lot of people who made their living in our sport were very negatively affected, and it stinks, but it's something we had to go through, and hopefully it won't be here much longer.
Yeah, that's something I actually wanted to talk to at one point, was what is NASCAR going to look like? And I'm glad you brought that up. It was just something on my mind. What would NASCAR look like in the post-COVID world? How would it affect race teams, sponsorships, companies sponsoring in the sport, and all these different aspects? And of course the tracks not having fans, definitely those tracks and the sport in general definitely loses a lot of money, and of course every sports league is suffering the same issue.
Right. Well, I think a couple of things come to mind real quickly. Is just what I started to say, is that a lot of the procedures I think will be changed in the future as far as amount of time at the track and required to be there. Obviously, they were going to roll out the brand new car for next year, which is going to affect the teams severely as far as the number of people that are employed, because the new car is going to have a lot of bolt-on parts that don't require as many fabricators on the race teams. And most of those people are well aware that change is coming, but NASCAR had made the decision to put that off and for another season. So 2021 will be the standard car they've been using, and then 22 they'll go to the new body style. And that new body style and chassis configuration is going to make a big change, not only in the number of people that work there, but budgets and I think we'll see a lot of different procedures from that, and that'll trickle down from the Cup Series then to Xfinity and trucks. It's sort of the way they've implemented those kind of things. But getting body parts that basically snap on and snap off and are easily replaceable is the goal of that. And it kind of reminds me of the ASA days when they had the composite bodies, and ARCA's gone to that, and it's worked really well for the teams as far as doing repair and your body work and your repaints and your re-wraps are so much more simplified now because of the ability to replace parts quickly.
Yeah, exactly. And that's definitely something that both of us are really looking forward to with the NextGen car. Obviously, they just had a test at Charlotte. They ran both the road course and the oval, and I was very intrigued to see, how the cars ran, how it looks. And obviously, I know it's a generic body, and they're still working on different things. And it's good to get another year to really, get this down. But I think it's a great idea moving forward with the composite bodies. I've always believed it was a cheaper option, and I definitely think we'll see more of that.
One of the first visits I made to a race team was in Charlotte, and Michael Waltrip was driving the Country Time number 30, and I went to their race shop to do an interview. Chuck Ryder was the owner, and I walked into this building, and I looked in there, and I'm like, they've got 60-some race cars in this building, and I kept walking around. I'm like, what car is this? And they'd say, oh, well, that's our Bristol backup. And I'd look at the one right beside it, and they're like, oh, that's a mile-and-a-half car. And it was just one of the dumbest things I had ever seen in my life, because all of these cars looked completely different, the way the front fenders were flared, the way the nose was made. And I said to Chuck, how can you do this? And he said, it's ridiculous that I've got 60 cars in this property, but you got to have backups, and we're starting a second team and this and that and whatever. Well, I mean, the amount of money, it was just crazy. So I went to a number of owners and crew chiefs, and I said, what do you think of a common template car to eliminate the need to have all these? And they're like, oh, well, that'll take away all of our creativity. We don't want that. So it was such a double-edged sword that, the owner didn't want to spend the money on having that many cars, but they also wanted to have a better shot at winning, and they felt by having the right crew chief and the right fabricators, they could make something really unique and different. So it boggled my mind back in the day, and obviously it took NASCAR a number of years to go to, what you would call a common template, overall template. And they were very against the whole concept, but it sort of eased its way in. And now look what we've got now. These guys have to go through laser guides on their rear ends that are measured in micrometers. So it has changed an incredible amount since the late 80s when I got started.
Gosh, yeah, the sports changed so much over time, and obviously, you mentioned the common body template, because I remember when I was a kid, I used to see the Gen 4 cars, and how they race and how different they would look at Atlanta compared to Bristol, compared to Talladega and Daytona even. So definitely something interesting to bring up there. Anything you wanted to add, Michael, by the way?
Yeah, it's just I just think it's crazy to think about what it was like back then, and just think about, without this common card template we have now, just what it would be like if that hadn't changed. I mean, costs would be through the roof. I mean,
yeah.
I don't think we'd be able to sustain the sport, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
That's just something crazy to think about right there.
Well, yeah, I mean, first of all, the amount of space it took up to have that many vehicles was crazy. But if they wrecked
60 cars, wow. I mean, that is a ton of space that you need.
Yeah, that's a lot of money.
And that was it, and just the parts inventory and all of that stuff. So it really is very different when you go into a Cup team today. And, a lot of these guys, I would say many of the cars that they use, any of them that have stress on them, like a Bristol car or something like that, probably only gets raced 2 times. And then they run it down, maybe down through a smaller team or whatever. But there's still a lot of cost because they continually try to improve and build newer and better. But the difference is they don't have an inventory of 30 cars sitting there for each driver.
Yeah, just curious, when you said 60 cars, are you talking 60 like complete cars or bare chassis?
Yeah, no, I'm talking about cars that are sitting there with dashes in them and the transmission ready to go, drop an engine in that car, and it was ready to race. I mean, I'm not talking about just parts and pieces. I'm talking about ready to put it in the trailer and rear end gears and shocks and every complete roller painted and lettered, just minus an engine. And it was unbelievable. I mean, I think they had 4 Martinsville cars sitting all in a row. And I said, what's the difference between these? And he said, well, we just tried a few different things and we tested them all, and we're going to take this one. And they had 4 cars, that's four Martinsville cars. I mean, it was just mind-boggling. But again, we got away from that, and the owners realized that wasn't sustainable. But I remember I took a video and a photo down through the middle of this garage, and I'm like, boy, look at all those Country Time logos. Lot of decal cost.
Yeah. Well, nice.
Nice the top teams have that many cars anymore.
Yeah. That's just crazy that they had all those different cars that, some only get used 1, 2, 3 times out of the year. That's just, jeez, that's a lot of money.
Yep, it sure was. So, but it's interesting today. You go to a Camping World Truck Series team, and you go in and you'll see that, each team, each individual driver and crew chief may have 6 units that are raceable, and they convert a number of those over. Typically you'll take your oldest short track truck and then make it the dirt truck as they build a new short track truck. But, 6 is a pretty good number for inventory of most of these teams. They'll have a Daytona Talladega truck, and then they'll have 2 or 3 intermediate 1.5-mile trucks, and then they have 1 really good short track truck and a dirt truck. I mean, that's pretty much the inventory, and that's the way it should be. They've got to get it figured out.
Yeah, and then you got guys like Norm Benning who have 1 truck for every track. Yeah. I mean, 'cause that's all they can afford. They have to get that thing to run at Daytona, then go to Eldora or Bristol. I mean, it's well, I guess not Eldora anymore, but yeah, you know what I mean.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Knoxville next year.
Knoxville. Yeah.
I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, definitely. I was gonna bring that up too, like thoughts on the 2021 schedule changes and all the new tracks that all 3 circuits will be heading to.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. It's been fun to see the diversity of those schedules. You know, there were a couple things that were sort of glaring to me. You know, it appeared that that Speedway Motorsports got dumped on a little bit, obviously with the loss of all the races at Kentucky and losing a race at Texas, and there's some strangeness a little bit to some of those schedules, but I mean, to be able to see the Cup cars at COTA, I mean, that's going to be amazing. And you know, I think there's some really interesting parts to those schedules. You know, for trucks, I haven't really studied that thing completely, but I think what I heard from most of the drivers is they were pretty excited about the changes. You know, the whole thing is going a little bit more road course. Not sure I totally understand that. I know we've had some really good races on road courses, but they're not always really good. Mm-hmm. So I think from the owner's standpoint, obviously, especially in trucks, they said if we're going to have one road course, let's have two or three. Just because you've got to spend that money on the R&D on that vehicle. So I think some of what NASCAR did was simply in answering the call to the owners of what they felt was more feasible. So that's great.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's crazy to think that 4 years ago, you know, the Cup schedule just had Sonoma and Watkins Glen. Then in 2018, you had the Charlotte Roval. And then, you know, this year the Xfinity Series ran at the Indy Road Course. Now the Cup Series is going to have 6 road course races, if I'm correct, next season. Watkins Glen, Sonoma, the Roval, COTA, Indy, and Road America. Did I say that already?
No, I don't think you did.
Okay.
Oh, and we got a dirt race, which is what I think I'm most excited for.
Yeah, the Bristol dirt race. I'm definitely looking forward to the Cup guys getting to run on dirt. That's going to be a lot of fun.
I think you'll see in that race a very similar thing to what happened in the trucks when they went the first time, that there will be 3 or 4 guys who just are really, really good. You know, and they're going to be, you know, you'll be like, wow, there's a huge disparity in the ability back through the field, especially in the Cup deal, because so many of those guys have never done it. So that will be fun for sure.
Yeah. Guarantee you, Kyle Larson, Christopher Bell, Chase Briscoe, and Tyler Reddick are going to shine in that race.
Oh yeah, they're going to be dual threats to win that race for sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure I understand am I correct in saying that the Busch Clash is on the road course, and I don't understand that one, but whatever. We'll see if people like it.
Yeah, honestly, neither do I. I mean, honestly, I didn't really enjoy the road course race they did earlier this year. I mean, I thought it was kind of it just seemed like everybody was getting all spread out and there was no real action except for right on the restart.
Yeah. I mean, honestly,
well, if it had rained, then yeah, it would have been fun.
True. I think they did this in the early days when they started doing this Clash event, but I wonder if maybe the Clash should just be 20 laps on the oval, go for it, you know? Just 20 laps. 20-lap dash for maybe some sort of a money incentive like the All-Star race, you know?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I've been a big proponent over the years of simplifying the schedule at Daytona and bringing it into 1 week instead of 2, and so you know, they're trying different things, which is interesting. I didn't really totally enjoy the Roval at Charlotte, to be honest with you. I think that there are certain road courses that are set up that run well for these kind of cars. Obviously, Watkins Glen and Sonoma have gotten a really good handle there. But those races have lots of passing zones and interesting things. But I'm not sure about. I wasn't in love with the Roval. Certainly not at Indy. But again, people like different things. I'd like to see more short tracks, more 3/4 miles and half miles, and lots of side by sides. What I like. So, but I guess I'm a purist, or just old.
Everybody has their own opinions. I've always been a fan of like track diversity and shaking the schedule up every season, doing things a little different. So I'm open to anything, obviously. And obviously, Michael and I were pretty bummed about Kentucky. That's our home track, but still.
Yeah, that's an understatement.
Yeah. Obviously, we got Indy nearby and Bristol, Nashville. I'm looking forward to Nashville very much. But yeah, and of course they said that they're going to continue to make more schedule changes. So I'm very curious to see what NASCAR will do in the next several years.
Bring back Kentucky.
Thank you. I agree. I honestly want Kentucky to get another shot. I understand, people have said, the racing there is not great, but Kentucky is still a really nice market. It's a beautiful track. And, I just hope track gets another chance again. And obviously, same if it happens for Chicagoland as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I was completely stymied whenever I found out that they weren't coming back and to Kentucky. But again, I understand they need to try some different things. I'm all for that. I just I don't know. When I look at the truck schedule, to me, it's still a little bit heavy on super speedways. I would hopefully modify that some, but obviously we're also in a time now where it's very, very difficult for promoters, especially till we find out, if we can eradicate COVID and get them in a position to get crowds back in again too. So, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But it was a huge shock to me when I heard the news that Kentucky was off the schedule for all three divisions.
Yeah, it caught me off guard too. I wasn't really expecting that track necessarily to be taken off. I thought maybe, certain tracks might be the date, but I was like, whoa, okay. Awesome. But I guess I remain hopeful, and obviously business is business, and you just have to try different things and shake things up, because 2021 really does feel like a new generation in NASCAR. Like, it's a new NASCAR almost. A lot of the guys that, especially that Michael and I have grown up watching are all retired now. There won't be a Gordon on the track, or an Earnhardt, or Johnson, or Edwards, or Kenseth, unless he comes back again, or a bunch of those names. And obviously Chase Elliott winning the championship is a huge deal. The NextGen car coming in 2022. You got new teams coming in. You got the Denny Hamlin, Michael Jordan team that looks like could be the next super team. You got the Justin Marks team with Trackhouse, and the new team that got announced recently with BJ McLeod and Matt Tiff, Live Fast Racing. So, and we're hearing rumors about Colleague Racing going to Cup. So we got new teams coming in, and I really feel like the sport has a really, really bright future ahead.
Yeah,
I
hear
agree.
Colleague. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, if you didn't hear, Colleague actually did confirm they're going to attempt the super speedways and road courses for next year.
Yeah, I saw that. So
yeah, I'd expect Haley on the. Yeah, sorry about that.
No, I agree completely with you as far as the new. There's a lot of new blood and a lot of new teams. That's fun. It's always enjoyable to watch how those transition, and you see, young crew chiefs get an opportunity to move up and make the change, and that's what the whole thing's designed for, is that people get a chance to move up. up through the ranks, and it's part of it. There's a lot of young drivers that. How do I say this the right way? The old-time race fans, a lot of people that I know aren't familiar with a number of these younger kids and where they came from or how they got there. And so I think one of the things we've got to do a little bit better is educate, educate the legacy fans that there's still a lot of talent there. Because, you guys were just mentioning, when you say the group of Kenseth and Edwards and Jimmy Johnson are gone, well, I mean, I'm still remembering the days of Mark Martin and Rusty Wallace and Dale Sr. and right. Bill Elliott, I mean, those were the guys that were at the top of the notch when I started. And as those guys cycle through and younger guys come along, we've got to know their story. And I think that's one of the continuing projects for NASCAR is to, hopefully build some rivalries, number one, and then number two, educate who these young kids are and how they got there.
Oh, definitely. I agree.
Yeah, I mean, you got a few of those now. I mean, like you have Joey Logano against, well, just about everybody, and Kyle Busch against also just about everybody. So, you don't really have those rivalries like you used to have with Jeff Gordon and Dale Earnhardt. So that's definitely something that would, I think, help improve the sport, is having those two guys who you always want to see what happens next with.
Right. Yeah, we're missing a little bit of that, and some of that is, I don't know. It's kind of fun though for me to watch the Chase Briscoes of the world come up and get a shot in a good ARCA ride and then run up through the ranks real fast like that. But we also got to make sure everybody understands who Chase Briscoe is and that he didn't have a rich daddy that bought him every opportunity, and tell that story that he's a young kid from a family that didn't have a lot of extra and he just got an opportunity because of his talent.
Yeah, right. I mean, just seeing the way Chase Briscoe has risen up through the ranks has been so incredible to watch, especially considering, this is a guy who gave me advice, when I first started racing USAC. I've known him for a little bit now. He's a really good dude, really nice and humble, and seeing him get this opportunity is just so awesome to see.
Yeah, I agree.
Considering I basically have the same sort of background as him, I don't have a rich daddy to pay for everything. I got to go out and find sponsorship myself to make sure I can get back on track. I mean, so just seeing someone have success with that, definitely kind of inspires me to at least keep going.
Yeah, and going back to the telling stories, it reminds me of, when Ross Chastain got that big break with Chip Ganassi a couple years ago. He won that race at Las Vegas, and I remember him going, wow, I'm just a watermelon farmer from Florida. What am I doing here? So that just kind of opened up the story of, oh, wow, okay. His family runs a watermelon farm, and now here he is. Next year, he's going to get a big break in the Cup Series with Chip Ganassi. So I think, just pushing those stories and learning more about these drivers over time and having these rivalries develop and, could definitely help NASCAR thrust into the spotlight more often, for sure.
Absolutely. All right, guys. Well, listen, I've enjoyed chatting with you, and looking forward to this is such a funny time of year as you get into Thanksgiving and Christmas, and then before you know it, it's like people start talking about Daytona again, and get you fired up about ready to go, and hopefully we'll have a racing season coming up where people can we can get vaccinated from COVID, and people can go out and sit in the short tracks and the stands and enjoy a year of racing that won't be as abbreviated as what we had here. But again, kudos to NASCAR for pulling off what I thought was pretty much going to be impossible to get all those races in this season. They deserve a huge pat on the back, and I know a lot of people worked really, really hard to make that happen so we could all enjoy it. So congrats to them, and hopefully next year will be bigger and better, and hope you guys stay safe. Enjoy the holidays.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for coming on, man.
Yep, I enjoyed it.
All right. Well, a special thank you to Ray Dunlap for joining us here on the podcast, and obviously, yeah, to all of you listening, I hope you all have a wonderful Thanksgiving and a wonderful Christmas as we roll into the off season. Daytona will be here before we know it, and from all that, I guess we'll go ahead and wrap things up here on the Dropping the Hammer Racing Hour here on the Grueling. Can't speak. Here on the Grueling Truth, from Ray Dunlap, Michael Klein, and myself, Alex Gray. Thank you guys so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.